Welcome back to the Comp Closet podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Sarah Moore, and today we are thrilled to be chatting to an incredible FMG wellness pro, a posing coach, and a dedicated mother. Kristina Angeli, welcome.
Hey, Sarah, how are you going?
Good. It's so good to have you on here. I'm excited to find out more about your journey. You've been, really inspirational throughout the years with all the shows and everything you've done, and now obviously going into motherhood as well. So let's start at the beginning of your journey. You've achieved, like I said, so much in your bodybuilding career. Can you take us back to the beginning and share what sparked your interest in competing?
Yeah, wow. So I've been doing it for, sorry, that's my little man. I've been doing it for 10, 11, 12 years. I lost count. And I just remember I was training gym since I was like 17. I was a dancer when I was younger. And when I got into the gym, I just did it because I had a back injury from my dance and I couldn't really move the same. So I decided I was going to do something else to keep fit. And so my dad always went to the gym. So I went to the gym. And then I think it was when I was around 19, 20, that some random old dude came up to me in the gym and just asked me if I was competing. And I was like, what do you like competing in what? Like weightlifting? Because I was doing deadlifts. I think I was doing like 60 kilo deadlifts, And I was like, oh, in weightlifting. And he was like, no, in bodybuilding. And I was like, oh, like, I don't look like Arnie. What do you mean? Because back then, it wasn't really popular. You didn't really know about the fitness model concept. So, and my sister's partner at the time was a bodybuilder. He was Mr. Australia. Wasn't he? He was Mr. Australia at the time. And he said, no, women do it. And women of your size do it. And so I said, all right, let's give it a go. And kind of the rest was history.
Yeah, wow. It's funny hearing how many people, get into competing through someone just approaching them in the gym and they didn't really know about it before. So That's super interesting. What kind of went through your mind when he said that, and like what actually made you decide to compete after, him saying that to you in the gym?
Well, at first I was like, why is this random old man coming up? I was like, is he kidding me? He's showing me worried. And he was just like an old school bodybuilder. And so that at first I was like, oh, this is a bit weird. And then I think it was talking to my sister's partner and just asking questions around. So like, if I did it, what am I going to look like Arnie? Because I had no reference to what a female bodybuilder is, what they look like, it's that fear of, oh, if I lift weights, am I going to get too big? And so I think we just had a few conversations. He sent me some links about fitness modeling. And I started seeing the physiques and I was like, oh, that looks really nice. And I think, a decade ago, I competed first in fitness and then I did figure. And the figure back then was bikini now. So it was a very different look. Like it was very attainable, beautiful, not too muscular look. And so I remember just like looking into it and thinking, maybe I should give it a go. Maybe this old random guy at the gym was right. And then, I think he was also coaching at the time. And so I said, oh, will you coach me into my first show? And, he was good about it. He said, yes, but you need at least 6 months to learn how to, the process works before I'm going to think about even putting you into a show. And so it took me a little bit of time working with him and then learning how to train properly because, at that time I was training for like at least 2-3 years, but, it wasn't serious, it wasn't intense, it wasn't heavy by this standard, today's standard anyway. Because, back then women didn't really do free weights. So I was doing just machines or I was doing cardio or I was attempting to deadlift, probably really injuring my back doing it. So there was a bit of a process before I got there.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are some of those early challenges that you faced when you first started competing?
When I started competing, Instagram wasn't as much of a thing. So there was no one to compare myself to, which was probably a good thing, not a challenge. But I didn't know what I didn't know. And I think, like all of us, when we first get into it, we're a bit too serious, so I was a bit too obsessed on the numbers. I was a bit too obsessed on my weight, but I didn't want to do anything wrong. I wanted to be perfect and make it perfect. And I remember like I went to the show with just my mum. And it was me and my mum sitting in the corner and everyone had like their coaching teams and all their friends. And it was just us together having fun. So I think those were just lessons to learn and to experience it on my own. But I think some of the big challenges because the education wasn't there, was, how do I reverse diet and what does that look like? And, understanding that it's hard post-show mentally, and because there wasn't resources about it. Because there wasn't resources about it, it was hard to know what was normal. And then, that was the very start of it. And that was me learning, experiencing hard post-comp seasons. And then as I progressed it, the hardest thing was once Instagram did pop up, everyone wanted to win and everyone wanted the good Instagram photos and everyone wanted to turn pro. And that was when I started to feel the pressure of, I've got to be good at this and I've got to do well. And the hardest thing for me was it took me 10 years to turn pro, in FMG, WBFF at the time. It wasn't overnight. I wasn't that one that just got up and came first all the time. I was lucky to place and, second, but it was just missing out constantly. And I think the really hard time for me was everyone telling me, you should have won, and everyone on social media seeing that you should win. And then me thinking, why didn't I? What's wrong with me? Let me just try again, and I'll try again, and I'll try again. And that was so hard. And that was, really dark times. It's made me the best athlete possible. Don't get me wrong. Losing is one of the best things that can happen to you as an athlete, because you learn, how to be a good loser. You learn that it's not guaranteed. But yeah, I think that period of, I've got to push a little bit harder, get a little bit more, do a little bit more, resulted in me competing 6 times in 2 years, which was a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot. What advice would you give to someone else who's in a similar position? Maybe they keep coming second or third and they really want that pro card. What advice would you give to them?
People often would say, it's easy for you to give the advice now that it's happened to you. And I think listening to friends of mine that were pros when it happened, and, they say, it's not if, it's when, and, just keep working towards it. Like, it'll happen, don't get down. Like, these are all good lessons. And that's so hard to hear when you're in it. It's so hard to hear because you're saying, well, that's all well and good for you because you got the outcome you want, but I'm stuck in the hard part or the disappointing part. But I think if I could go back and actually talk to myself while I was in that, I would say, like, enjoy this time as an amateur because you never get it back. And when you're an amateur and you're coming second and third, it's because something's missing to give you that additional edge to, get up there and present as a pro. And that's okay. And you want to learn those lessons as an amateur because once you step on the pro stage, it's not as easy. You're up against the best of the best. You can't make those same mistakes. You can when you're on the amateur stage, and you never get that back. You can't go pro and then, say, oh, hang on, I wish I would learnt this or tried this or did this. I'm just going to go back and try again. Like your time's done. You're a pro. You need to present as a pro. You step on, the most difficult stages against the best athletes in the world. And so I probably would have just told myself to enjoy it for what it was, know that you'll never get that time back, and know that that's the time to learn the lessons. That's the time to build the friendships. That's the time to make the mistakes. That's the time to have, being a pro, absolutely still have so much fun, but that's the time as the amateur to just enjoy it. And by only focusing, not only, but it was such a big focus of mine for, a few years on, I'm just so close. I just got to get it. I just got to try again. And by focusing on that, it took the fun away. It took the passion away. And I probably missed a lot of really fun, good moments because I was so disappointed that, another one where it just didn't happen again, which is just not the right mindset and nothing that I teach any of my girls now. But I can teach them that because I know how it feels and I've gone through it and I understand. But there's so much more to competing than the trophy, and know that it's a subjective sport. So even if you think you should have won, it's not objective. You didn't kick a goal and you scored. It was who the judges deemed the best on the day. And, it's not about who diets the hardest or who has the lowest body fat percentage or, there's not metrics that sit behind it. So once you truly understand that, it does make the wins and the losses a little bit easier because you find that the wins and losses are actually what you learn on the journey to get there.
Yeah, that is so true. I love that advice so much. And, like you said, you kind of have to go through it to experience it and realize how much it means and how much you learn from those losses as well. What changed when you actually won your pro card? Because I know a lot of competitors think that everything's just going to change overnight when they go pro. What actually happened for you?
Like, you know, there are opportunities you get as a pro. You know, it does mean you get to step on different stages against different competitors. You know, there is a little bit of, you become known as a pro. You're a representative of that federation now. But in the realist sense, nothing. Like I got the pro card and the award, and I stepped away, and I was still, you know, a partner, a daughter, still had my job. I still woke up the same way and did my steps the same way, and, you know, ate the same way. And so, you know, it is an absolute honor to get there. Don't get me wrong, but what tangibly changes for you? Nothing. You're still the same person. You are still just as amazing and just as good at what you do, and just as when you're an amateur to when you're a pro. And that was something I learned in my business, you know, being a coach and not being a pro, and thinking that I needed that pro status to, you know, provide credentials for my business. But my business didn't substantially and notably change overnight just by becoming pro. You know, that's something I built over years, and I've only been pro in the last few years of running my business. So yeah, I don't know, it's not a magical fix, and I wish I would have known that when I was, you know, in amateur years.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. Like, as you said, you're still the same person. You still have to put the work in. You get more opportunities in terms of what stages and that you're put on. And you are kind of, you know, like you said, a representative for the federation, and possibly have that little bit of credibility as a pro. But it doesn't just happen overnight. Like, you have to build upon that status, I guess, and that credibility that you get, and, you know, really market yourself for that as well. So
you've gone.
Yeah, exactly.
No, yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Like, you know, you're still the exact same person. You're still likely, you know, working a normal job, and you're balancing family and everything else as well. I think that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that, you know, pro competitors are working and doing all of these things as well. It's not like you go pro and start making all this money from competing.
Yeah.
So moving on to your personal life as well, how was your pregnancy journey while being so involved in fitness?
Was good. I mean, I was very fortunate to have, you know, Alicia, Ali's Angels as my coach throughout. And I invested in that because I knew I've never done this before. I don't know how it's going to go. And I know there's going to be days that are really hard where I can't eat, or I can't exercise the same, or it's not safe. And so to have that guidance there was, you know, one of the best things I could ever do, which actually meant that my pregnancy was very easy. Like, touch wood, I was very lucky, and I felt pregnant 2 months post Worlds. So went to Worlds, was really fortunate, you know, placed third there. My first pro show was on top of the world. And then 2 months later, I find out that, you know, around my 30th birthday, that I was pregnant. So I was really lucky because my body was in a clearly really healthy spot, but I was still reversing out of show. So I was very comfortable with, you know, how I looked and how I moved and how I felt. You feel really strong in that early reverse phase. So, like, first trimester was really hard and sucks, and, you know, morning sickness and all of that fun stuff. And then, you know, hard for me in second trimester, I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes, which in and of itself felt so difficult to hear, because they recommend that, you know, you manage it through diet and exercise. And here I am sitting there saying, well, yeah, that's, you know, I've been managed through diet and exercise for the past 10 years. It's kind of my job. And so that was probably like one of the hardest things that I had to process, that, you know, just because you are fit and healthy doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, and doesn't mean that, you know, you're going to get best pregnancy in the world. So that was a bit tricky, but yeah, the rest of the pregnancy journey was quite good, and I had the birth that I wanted. So I was quite, you know, fortunate. Now I have a super chunky, healthy little man.
He's so cute. If anyone's watching the video, you would have seen him at the start. It's very cute. So what advice would you give to mums who are struggling to balance their fitness journey with their pregnancy, or as an early stage mum?
Definitely invest in a coach or someone to guide you through it. It's like when you're in prep, right? Even if you can prep yourself, it's always good to have somebody there, because, you know, you're always going to see yourself differently. and it's hard to be objective around yourself. So I think having someone with the education to tell you when to pull back on certain exercises, to tell you when to increase your calories, to, all of those things, a sounding board on if things are good, bad, different, what supplementation you can still have during pregnancy. All of that was really useful. And as a first-time mum, nothing that I had really studied. And as someone who was fortunate enough to fall pregnant as a lovely surprise, it wasn't something that I was reading up on in advance. So that would be the best thing. And then, the other advice I think is just to know that, your fitness doesn't end when your motherhood journey begins. You're still the person you were. You're still the athlete. You're still, that strong, determined woman, but your focus is redirected when you're pregnant. And, your energy levels aren't the same and you can't do the same movements. And, postpartum, your body looks really different and is squishy and uncomfortable in ways that you've never probably seen before. But know that that is a point in time. Know that that doesn't, now that you're a mum, that doesn't define you. You're still an athlete, and you still will get back up there. And if you compete, you get back up on stages postpartum, and a lot of women do. But a lot of people still hear that, oh, well, your body's now ruined, because you're a mother, or the guilt of being a mum, and so you're going to go to the gym and just leave your child at home, are you? There's and people say things like that to you, and you kind of just have to brush it off your shoulder, because investing in yourself is just going to make you a better mum. But yeah, know that motherhood doesn't have to define you, and you can absolutely do both.
Yeah, I love that. And how have you dealt with the changes in your body and body image after giving birth? You've been so focused on aesthetics and physique and everything for all these years of competing. How have you dealt with those changes?
Yeah, again, went into it, with eyes open and just not really knowing what I didn't know. So just kind of hoping for the best and trying to do the best as I learned. But a lot of women will become postpartum and then will start their weight loss journey, to lose the baby weight. And I actually never did any of that. My food just increased postpartum, and I kept training and I kept, eating well and focusing on my recovery metrics versus my weight loss, lose the baby weight metrics. And I think that focus on recovery versus pure getting my body back was the best thing I could ever do, because I saw the extra food and the water you have to drink if you're breastfeeding. Oh my goodness. All the supplementation that I still take and the way I still eat like I'm pregnant because I am breastfeeding. So anything that I eat goes to my baby. So all of that, I think focusing on recovery, not what my body looks like, was the best thing. I think the first month was really hard. And seeing just, as soon as you give birth, it's like your butt just shrinks. I lost 5 centimeters like that. And I was so upset because I was like, oh, I've kept all this size. And, it's just fluid and fat that, if you're breastfeeding, baby just sucks out of you. So it was, that was hard. I think the first month, just acclimatizing to my new body and my new, how everything felt, because you're quite weak and everything's a lot looser and all of that stuff. But then once I had that early period of just being gentle on myself from, a month postpartum, I've just been focusing on recovery, and that's been really, really good. And I still look in the mirror and I look different, but it's I'm proud of what my body has done different. So it's a different way to look at it, but it is really hard. And you will, if you have been a competitor and you've been on stage and then you see yourself, fresh postpartum and you still look like you have a pregnant, but you're not, that can be really hard. And so I think focusing on how well you can recover, how well you can fuel yourself and your baby, and just being kind to yourself. Know that it's as I said earlier, it's just a phase, just a period where you need to, focus on your baby and your recovery more than what you look like, and you will get back to stage lean, in time.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of sounds like an extreme version of post-show when you're reverse dieting, you start focusing on, those performance metrics and stuff as well. Obviously different, but the same kind of, I guess, mindset switch that you have to make.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a really good analogy.
And how has life changed for you since Cohen was born?
Everything has changed. Everyone told me that. Everyone's like, everything would change. And I'm like, yeah, but everything changed. I think the biggest shift was like my mentality. So, you know, before Bub, it was being a bodybuilder. My partner was a bodybuilder. And, you know, we were quite independent. We did what we wanted. You know, we didn't have those responsibilities. And now it's, instead of everything, you know, we come first, it's, you know, Cohen needs to come first and his needs need to come first. And I think that mindset shift was quite immediate for me postpartum, and like stronger than I had anticipated, in terms of being nervous what if something happens to him, or anxiety about him getting sick, or your brain just rewires to focus and do nothing but care for and support this little innocent thing that you've created, that you're so in love with. You know, the hormonal shifts are insane. But that has been a really big shift of mine, and one I've loved and has made me such a better person and so much more patient and understanding, and, you know, has given me amazing perspective on athletes that I coach that are also mothers and what they have to go through. So it's been, quite a big shift, but one of the best things ever. And I, you know, love myself so much more now that I am a mum, because just that level of understanding you have, but also the ability to really prioritize and become efficient in the time that you do have to do things for yourself. You know, I used to say, I don't want to train in the afternoons. Like, I'll never train in the afternoons. I have to train in the morning because I have the best energy, and it has to be specifically after this many meals and, you know, with this amount of caffeine. And now it's like, oh, I can only train 9 p.m. Okay, sure. You know, I'll do that. And I can only train for half an hour. Okay, great. I'll fit it in. And you just become a lot more efficient at getting stuff done for yourself and reprioritizing your time around your child. And I'm just not as fussy or picky anymore about when I can get stuff done, because you just try and fit it in when you can.
Yeah, incredible. And as a posing coach and a pro competitor as well, how do you balance, you know, all of the stuff with Bub and what you need to do for work?
Time blocking is your best friend. Time blocking was my best friend before I was pregnant, but it's even more important now. And so, you know, 30-minute increments throughout your day I try and schedule and plan what I'm doing in 30-minute increments. And it sounds extreme, but it's really, really helpful, because you can normally with Bub do something for half an hour, you know, and sometimes that half an hour might be killed because they might be really, really grumpy, but then half an hour later they might be feeding and you can do something then. Or half an hour after that they might be having a nap, and you can, if you're not nap trapped, do something then. So time blocking your day, and I think this works for anyone, mum or not, who's busy. You know, when I was working my 9 to 5 plus posing coaching plus competing, you know, 60 to 80 hour weeks of work plus your steps and your cardio, and like, I mean, everyone listening would understand that. And just blocking out that time so you can have your 30-minute slots of the things you need to accomplish, and then you can tick them off and you really feel accomplished, and 30 minutes feels achievable. I found if it was an hour, that felt sometimes too long, and then sometimes things would get missed and get pushed out. So I think that is a really practical way to juggle things. But the other way is just not needing to be as perfect, and knowing if you didn't get it done today, you can try tomorrow, and that's okay, because you're not on your timeline anymore. You're on your child's timeline, and what they want goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And how did you kind of move away from that perfectionism? Like, if you've time blocked your day and you've got all these things that you'd planned to get done, and then, you know, the day just turns to shit and you only get half of it done, how do you kind of be kinder to yourself?
I don't know if I even have a strategy for that. It was more, I think, having Cohen, my priorities shifting to him first and me second, and trying to be, I guess, you know, consistent over perfect. And I think having been doing this for over a decade, that is something I've, I guess, learnt a little bit along the way, not as well as, you know, now being a new mum. But you can't try and be perfect and nail everything and do everything perfectly 100%. You know, that 80-20 rule, I think, is really real and valid. And just listening to yourself, because some days I might have a perfect day and Cohen might be fine. And, you know, I had training plans, like today's a great example, but he didn't sleep all night. And so I didn't sleep all night. And so I feel like crap. And so when you feel like crap, that's not the best day to train. And so even sometimes you're not forced to. It's sometimes just listening to your body and understanding that you need to take a step back, and that's okay because there's going to be more time to do things later and then you're in a different state. If I was in comp prep, it would be different. I would force myself that little bit more, but now it's just me listening to my body and listening to Cohen and Cohen's needs and trying to just balance the two. But know that there's always going to be another day, and know that, again, it's just a phase. Just a phase of life that sometimes it's annoying and I can't get my training in. That's okay, because in a different phase when I'm prepping, re-round priorities will shift and things will be different. So just be kind to yourself.
Yeah. I think that makes so much sense. It's like with anything in life, like there should be kind of that one main thing, I guess, that you're prioritizing. And that's how you achieve those goals as well, is really prioritizing that one main thing. And like you said, that shifts over time as well.
Yeah.
So have there been any surprising lessons about, balancing work and family that you could share?
Yeah, and not surprising, I think, because everyone does talk about it, but needing to rebalance, one, like how you prioritize yourself. And actually, previously it would be easy and you could book a massage when you wanted to and go do it. And now, those things are still a necessity, but they're a luxury in terms of when you can actually go and do things for yourself as a mother. And so I think having open conversations with your partner and your support network and not feeling guilty, because it's so easy to feel, I'm really fortunate. We're living with our parents at the moment while we sell a house, and, I had Cohen and he was upset. And so I just said, Mum, can you just please look after him for an hour while I do this? Otherwise everyone will just hear screaming baby the whole time. And being lucky that, she's there and she can do those things for me. So I think asking for help from your support network. I, freshly postpartum, used to ask if I could go get my nails done, and I felt so guilty. Like, I'm here on maternity leave, needing to be looking after my baby, and I'm wanting to get my nails done. Where is my focus? But it's actually those little things that make you feel like yourself again, that make you a better mother. So don't neglect that. Ask for help on that. And then I think with your partner, it's really easy to forget about them, because it used to be, you and then you and them. And now it's you and your child and then you and them. And the you and your child take up so much time on their own that it's really, sometimes you forget about the you and your partner side of things. And so where you can, finding time to do things together, remembering you're a team. I know people say that all the time, but in the heat of the moment when they're frustrating you and you're the one that's woken up with the baby all night, and, you've got to remember that they're your team. So ask them for help and communicate with them. And still do things. We like to do things as a family. So we used to do like date days or date nights together, and now we just do it as a family, which is lovely. And we're still prioritizing that and we're still doing it. It just looks different. But don't forget them, and don't forget you and them came first. So try and just give as much time as you can, which often is maybe 10 minutes twice a week, and that's fine.
Yeah, I love that. That's really good advice. And do you have a plan to return to competing, or are you kind of taking it day by day at the moment?
Yeah, so my plans are 2026 will be my stage return. So I said to Jesse, because we haven't ever done a family holiday, and I said to him, these are all the countries that FMG shows. Which one do you want me to do? And so he is allowed to pick the country we go to, and we'll travel there as like a family holiday and do that together, which is really nice. Me and my mum used to do it all the time. So she would always join me on shows and things. So it's Jesse's turn to come on the holiday, and Cohen can come too. And so I think it'd be a lot of fun. So my focus on my return to stage is, family holiday. And then getting back up there and just seeing how I look postpartum, seeing how I stack up, and then, I can get the feedback to make improvements.
Yeah, cool. How exciting is it that, we can look at the show calendar and say, where do we want to go in the world? Like, that is so exciting. And I love that you're tying it into a family holiday as well, because then, like you said, you get that quality time, and there's more to it than just the show as well, which kind of helps to take the pressure off a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it is. And it's a good focus. It's a good additional, I think anyone, if you want to compete overseas, make a holiday out of it. we always do like a peak week somewhere, which has been so good because your cortisol drops. And if you think when you're on holidays, all you're doing is like often you're just very active. You'll be walking around a lot. You'll be exploring and you just do that minus the food. So yeah, we'll do a peak week somewhere and then we'll do a post-show holiday somewhere as well, which is just so much fun as a competitor. Do take advantage of it. If you can, do take advantage of traveling and competing because it's great fun.
Yes, absolutely. So exciting. And how are you preparing for that comeback, like throughout this year and then leading into prep next year as well?
So one, getting back into good intensity in my sessions in the gym. I mean, I'm 7 months postpartum now, so a few months into that kind of back to normal intensity, which has been nice. And just keeping on my diet and making sure, I'm using the fuel that I'm getting at the moment. And then just starting to clean up and see where I can time block, as we talked about, but lock in times where I can make sure I can get my sessions done and lock in habits around getting those walks in the morning. And so just cleaning up the habits a little bit and focusing them more on making sure I can get my things in while also caring for my family. And that's a slow process and that's okay, which is why I didn't rush into getting back on stage. I want to take the time and then it will probably be, a mini cut or two and see how I can actually deal with a mini cut plus baby and everything, business and everything else. So yeah, slow and steady process. But main thing for me is, regaining the lost muscle from pregnancy and postpartum and seeing how much it can grow in the time before stage.
Yeah, cool. And what are your long-term goals in regards to competing?
Cool. That's a good one. I think I would love to go and compete in more countries, like I've done America a few times. And so I want to compete a little bit more broadly across and do more family holidays around competing and all the shows. And I think, I do want to certainly, everyone as an amateur, you want to turn pro. As a pro, you want to look to get the, an FMG, it's the pro crown. So of course, those are always aspirations. But I think for me, it's I wanted to turn pro so I could do something with it, so I could leverage that I could compete on the best stages with the best athletes and see how I stacked up. And I could compete all over the world, which FMG allows all competitors to do, which is amazing. So I really want to do that. And I want to, help more women do that and take more women to stage, being a coach as well. And I think for me, it's just that continuous improvement. So, I started in fitness, I then moved to figure, I then moved to bikini, I then moved to IFBB, I then, so I've done a lot. My body's shifted a lot over the years. And so I like that I can do that. And so my goals is always just to see how much more I can shift each show and just keep improving. I know that's kind of an annoying answer because it's just like, you just want to get better, but you do just want to get better. I think all competitors just want to get better.
Yeah, that is so true. And just touching on your business as well, you're obviously a posing coach. Can you tell me a bit more about that and why you got into it?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for, I think, 6 years now. So it was a few years of me competing before I even thought I could be a coach. And I started helping people out, like friends out with their poses, because I just found I had a bit of an eye for it. And with a dance background, I could teach relatively effectively. And then after a while, people were like, you're really good at this. You should maybe give it a go. And so I started my business thinking it was this small side hobby with little old me, being a posing coach. And who am I? Because I'm not even a pro yet, even though that doesn't matter. And yeah, I've just grown it since then. And I think I got into it because I love the stage and I love the beauty and I love the glamour side of things. Like I love all of the bikinis and all of that. So being able to help other people with those aspects. But also I loved the confidence that you can gain when you pose well. You can train in the gym all the time and you see your physique. And then you get that good lighting, you get that good pose and that good shot, and you feel so proud of what you've achieved. And I love being able to do that on a mass scale with other people and helping them see that same thing in themselves. It's just so much fun. And then show day is just so much fun. Like you're running around, you're fixing the hair and makeup, and you're talking about tans and fixing bikinis, and you're like helping them perform and shine on stage. And it's just so much fun. So yeah, it's been a slow growth process, and now it's it's pretty big. I'm really happy with where it's gone to. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, amazing. It must be so fulfilling, and like, you must feel so proud when you see those competitors get on stage and pose well after seeing all those weeks and weeks and months or possibly even years of helping them with posing.
Yeah. I get more nervous for them than myself. Like I get more like nervous, anxious butterflies and happy when it goes well for them than I probably do for myself. Because I have a few athletes that competed with me when I turned pro and then went to worlds with me as well. And a few people were asking me how I balanced it, but it was actually quite good for me because I didn't have time to get in my head and worry about my own stuff. I was just so focused on making sure they were good. And it was such a fun show because of that, I think, because I enjoyed it and I was in the moment so much more. So yeah, I absolutely love seeing, my lovely ladies step on stage.
Yeah, I love that. And what's one thing that you wish all competitors knew about posing?
So it doesn't have to be perfect. It's an art, not a science. Everyone will have a different opinion because it is an art. So find what works for you and find the feedback and the cues and the tips and the coach and the style that works for you. And know that, just because one person posed a certain way and they won, it might not have been why they won. It obviously really helped and they shined and they, looked good from it. But know that you don't have to copy that, and you don't have to do a certain style just because somebody else is doing a certain style or someone told you to do something. Know that it is an art and you are the artwork. So you can choose how you want to present your physique. So have fun with it. Like find your own personality and character with it. Don't try and copy, like do what works for you, and know that there's no one size fits all. Because I do see a lot of women, wanting to, this girl came first and, she looked really good, so I'm going to match her posing. Posing is the 20-30% of it. It's the bit that makes you shine. So if you're copying someone else's, you might not shine as well copying that style because maybe that's not you, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And how long before a show should a first-time competitor start posing?
As soon as you're even thinking about the stage. Because posing isn't art, there's so much you can do, and it takes quite a long time to find that style of yours that really suits you, plus amplifies and shows the best points of your physique. So don't leave it to the last minute. A lot of women tell me that posing is the hardest part. You can do the diet, you can do the cardio, you can do the steps. That's defined, tangible, do X, Y, Z, whereas posing, there's so much to it. It is an art. And so it takes time to build your craft. So as soon as you think if you're a first timer that you want to step on stage, find a posing coach, and just learn how to move in heels and learn your basics, because it does help. And the later you leave it in prep, the more brain dead you're going to be and the harder it's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. And, like you said, it's harder later in prep as well. Like definitely your energy is lower, your brain won't process that learning as well. So yeah, I completely agree with starting as early as possible. How would you define stage presence?
Stage presence, it's a lot about your energy, which is hard. Again, I know it's an annoying thing because it's intangible, right? But your presence is how your energy radiates to others and how they perceive that. So someone could have the best structural posing and shapes in the world, but if they're not smiling, if they're not engaging with the audience, if they're not genuinely excited and happy to be there, their energy is going to be a lot lower than someone who maybe their posing isn't as perfect, but they're so happy to be there. They're so excited. They're buzzing. Their smile radiates. And between the two, you're going to look at the lady or the person who's radiating on stage. So I think your presence is, yes, a lot to do with you need to meet the criteria and you need to, understand your category and you need to understand what they're looking for in their judging in your shapes, and you need to show your strengths and hide your flaws. Absolutely. But your presence is your energy that overlays that. So you want to be smiling. You want to feel comfortable and confident, which is, back to the point of Don't just copy someone else's. Because if that style isn't yours, your energy is going to be lessened because you're going to feel weird doing it, quite frankly. And if you feel weird, oftentimes you look a little bit weird. So you want to feel confident because there are so many styles out there for so many different people, and there is one that's going to suit you, and that's going to give you that radiant energy and stage presence.
Yes, that is such a good explanation of, the energy and the stage presence, because I think you hear that term all the time, and even sometimes the judges give feedback that you need to improve stage presence, but actually putting it into tangible words is quite hard. So yeah, I really love how you put that. One last question before we wrap it up. How has competing over the years impacted your business and other areas of your life in a positive way?
So a lot of people, I think, when they're competing, they put things on hold. I'm quite a type A person, with my 30-minute time blocks, which sounds extreme, but works, I promise. But I like to have things organized and have things done. And I find when I'm in prep, you laser focus on things a lot better. And so while I'm in prep, I find that I zone in on not just prep, but I actually zone into everything else in my life. It's like my brain gets into gear, and it's like everything is on and done and efficient. And so I actually find that when I'm in prep and competing, I take that same mentality to prep to the rest of my life, and I'm really productive in all facets of life. I do hear some people say, when they prep, they put other things on hold. And I've personally never done that. And I don't know if that's because I'm a type A and everything has to be done. I finished my university degree, and 2 weeks later flew out to Vegas for a figure world competition, and did well in both, because I was just like, this is what we're doing, this is the mindset. And so I don't know, I find competing gives you really good tools to have a really strong, focused mindset, and it's something that you can apply to the rest of your life. And I really encourage people to, because, you can do it all. It's hard. It takes time, and, it takes focus and energy, but you absolutely can. And competing does teach you that. It does push you to such extremes in your physique where you prove to yourself, I can do that. And so apply it to the rest of your life, because it does just really, really compound and can make you so successful in all aspects of your life and anything you want to do.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think, like you said, achieving those hard things and pushing your body to the limits helps you mentally get stronger as well. And then you can definitely apply that to other areas of life. So I love that so much. For those who are interested in following your journey or learning from you as a posing coach, where can they connect with you online?
Yes, so my website, posingboutique.com. You can go in there and look at all my services, and you can also connect with me on Instagram. I'm very active there. So send me a DM and I will likely reply pretty quickly. And that's Miss Kristina Wellness Pro.
Amazing. I will link those down below as well so everyone can find them easily. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Sarah.
And thank you to our listeners as well for tuning in. If you did enjoy this episode, please follow and rate on whatever platform you're listening to it on. Share it to your stories, tag us both, and let us know what you learned while listening to it. Thanks so much.